And welcome back to centralcoastradio.com. Well, now we're going to take a look at a brand new horror film that is out in cinemas right now. It's called Insidious, The Red Door, and it is the latest film in the franchise, the Insidious franchise, of course, that was set up by James Wan and Lee Winnell. This time around, things are a little bit different, though. This time it's directed by Patrick Wilson, who, of course, also stars in the film, and the screenplay itself is actually written by Scott Teems based on a story by Lee Winnell. Now, this time around, the Insidious world has changed. Josh, played by Patrick Wilson, and Renee, played by Rose Byrne, have split up. Now, that split has largely been caused by the fact that, if you'll remember back to what happened with the Insidious films, Josh and also Dalton, their son, played by Ty Simpkins, kind of had their memories wiped to forget about what happened when they went into the after, which is the term given to the astral plane that they can go into. Now, that has actually caused problems for both of them. Josh feels like there's part of his life that is completely missing, and that has caused him and Renee to split up. Now, his relationship with his son Dalton is fractured at best, and he offers to drive Dalton to college as a way to try and mend that relationship. But the trip just ends up being awkward. They end up having a fight, and nothing is really sorted out there at all. Now, Dalton's time at college starts off interestingly with Chris, played by Sinclair Daniel, being put into his room because the college look at the name Chris and think that she's a male. Now, this is where everything starts to go haywire. Dalton starts having memories when he goes to his art class, and his art teacher kind of hypnotizes them into trying to think of memories that they can paint. And that starts to wake up his memories of the after, which kind of at first intrigues Chris until she realizes how dangerous this can be. At the same time, Josh is going to doctors and also counselors to try and work out what's happening in his life, and is just generally falling apart. Now, to me, this is an interesting film because quite often when a horror ends in a franchise, you don't get to see what happens to the characters after that. You get movies like Scream and, of course, Final Destination where you get to see a little bit of it, but normally that's because the horror has started up again. In this film, you kind of see what's happened to both Josh and Dalton as a result of having their memories wiped of what actually happened with the after. It's left both of them complete messes. And like I said, things change dramatically here because in the past, Renee has always been able to kind of turn the conversation around or distract them when they start to remember something or start to talk about something. But with her split up from Josh, he's become a mess because all his memories are kind of playing on his mind. And when Dalton goes to college, everything changes, of course, because Renee's not there to protect him. Now, I feel that this movie is a little bit more savage than some of the other Insidious films. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as The Last Key, but the tone has definitely changed once again. And this time it's changed for a more kind of urban legend slash college horror that gets pretty intense at times. Lee, what did you think of Insidious, The Red Door?
Yeah, it's definitely based on a young person and them going through, changes as they're studying, but also, they've got repressed memories that are coming to the surface over time. I love how they brought in the art feel to it, with him needing to bring out memories of the past through his artwork, and how that all intertwined into the storyline. Great performances still from Ty Simpkins, Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, and Sinclair Daniel. They were the main characters that you really saw throughout this film. It has a very different feel to the previous Insidious films, I thought, and largely I feel it's because Elise Rayner, a character within a previous film, was really a main character, and of course in this film is not really in there, or not much anyway. So very, very different film. I think if you compare the films and try to say, oh, which one's best, you wouldn't say this one is the favourite, but it's still good. So I think sometimes we don't need to always try and pick out, oh, which one is the best, but just watch it for its own merit, because it has a very different feel to it, this one, I think. But I love the way that the family secrets start emerging. I love the way that, things that they've experienced in the past, they're now re-experiencing as if for the first time, really. And that includes like the astral projection and the out-of-body experiences. And also, those family secrets of what happened because of, previous experiences in the spirit world, and what that had done to their family and how that had had an impact on them. I think too, certainly coming through the film for me was you can suppress things and not work through them, but really you need to pull together as a family to get through them, and sometimes you have to face really hard things in life to get beyond it, rather than ignore it or suppress it, because that's when things can fall down more. So that's what I got from part of the film, and I enjoyed it. I just felt like it was very different to previous Insidious films.
Yeah, I felt that might have been because of the fact that Lee Winnell wasn't the major screenwriter on this one, whereas he has been on the other films. Like I said, this was Scott Teems doing the writing based on a story by Lee Winnell. I did like the fact, though, that it did have nods to the previous films. Specs, which of course is the character played by Lee Winnell, and also Tucker, Angus Sampson's character.
Yes,
they return for a little cameo this time around. And I think we also need to remember that Insidious has changed its tone a lot over the years. The original films with Specs and Tucker being there, they were kind of like comedic relief in a sense. They were like the not so good Ghostbuster kind of characters, whereas The Last Key was pretty savage, and this one is pretty savage as well. I think we did learn that Patrick Wilson has got what it takes to be quite a decent director. He does a pretty good job with this film, but he also, as we're about to hear, sings in this film. He has recorded a song with the band Ghost, which is a cover of Shakespeare's sister's song Stay. And he does a pretty decent job. So
it's an awesome song. I really love the way they've done it.
There's not too many people out there who can act in, direct, and do music for the one film. So yeah, Patrick Wilson does a pretty good job there. What are you going to give this one out of 5, and why?
I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I thought the acting in it was really good, and while it is different from other Insidious movies and has a different feel, and it's not my favourite of the franchise, but I still found it really fascinating. I like how it was written and directed and acted in.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 as well. I didn't like it as much as The Last Key, which is my favourite film in this franchise, but I still thought it had merit. There's still some good parts in there that I really enjoyed. Like I said previously, I really like the fact that this kind of shows what happens to people after the events of a traumatic experience in their life. But Insidious The Red Key, it's a general release, so make sure you go and check it out. It'll be showing in a cinema near you, and we'll be back in just a moment on centralcoastradio.com.